And today I want to talk about when you keep praying the same prayers. If you are anything like me, I'm sure you have had those moments where you felt like you've been asking God for the same thing over and over, and you may still not be getting that result. I remember a time when I had prayed for years for a change. I had prayed for someone who was close to me, and I was hoping that the Lord would help them, that He would speak to their hearts, that their actions, their motivations would be from His influence. And I had been going about this for year after year after year, even yearning for God to make a change in their life. And I wasn't seeing anything. I wasn't seeing that change that I was hoping for. I was not seeing the breakthrough that I wanted. And I was discouraged. I was disappointed. I was hoping that at some point that the Lord would make a way, that something would break, that something would change. I don't know if you've ever been there. If you've wanted so badly for something to change, that you kept praying the same prayer, maybe for weeks, maybe for months, or like me, for years. And it was a pivotal moment when I was praying again for this person, hoping that they would be different, that they would want to change, because honestly, their behaviors were affecting me in a negative way. I remember going for a walk and asking God, Lord, can you please just change them? Can you please just help them? Pleading. I will never forget this, because God said, what if they never change? Maybe for some of you, whatever that situation is, that person, that circumstance, what if it never changes? And I know that is not what you guys tuned in to hear today. That is not what you were hoping for. But that is what God said to me. And while I was taken aback initially by the question, I asked it again, and just to confirm, in case I had heard Him incorrectly, right? Because of course He should change this person. And the Lord said again, what if they never change? Will you stay the same? And that's my question for you. What if whatever you're going through, whatever you're praying about, whatever you're hoping for, that specific outcome doesn't happen? Will you stay the same? What do you do in those moments where your answer is not what you were hoping for? I just want to go through 3 different things to help you when you're in those moments of asking and praying the same prayers. 1 is to ask yourself, what is God saying or wanting from this situation? Psalm 37:4 says, delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. And so many people think this means that God will just give you whatever you want. But we have to make sure that we're delighting ourselves in the Lord. So what does that look like? It means seeking Him, wanting what He wants for us. Maybe He is saying no in this season. Maybe God is saying no about changing that situation, that person, that circumstance, because He wants you to grow in this season. He wants you to do some inner work. He wants you to be closer to Him. He wants you to delight yourself in Him. And we really have to understand that all things that we perceive as something negative or something that we don't want to go through, that God can be using it to help our character. And no one likes the hard journey. No one likes doing extra work, right? We want the answer and we want it right now. But honestly, when you take the time to figure out how you're going to grow through this process, then you will be able to delight yourself in the Lord, right? You'll be able to handle the circumstance much better, because you'll understand that the answer that you wanted to have may not look the way that you thought it would look. It doesn't mean that God won't answer. It just may look a little different. And he sees the whole picture. He's sovereign. It's the whole thing that he understands and sees. But so often we only see ahead of us. He could see around the corner. And that thing around the corner could be waiting to take you out. But you're thinking that if you got what you needed right now, things would change. And sometimes those same things that you're praying about, you're not really ready for. Maybe you're praying about the business, right? When you haven't taken the steps to be prepared for an overflow in the business, right? So what are you able to do right now in this situation while you're waiting? The second thing when it comes to praying the same prayers is asking yourself, what am I supposed to learn in this season? And that is a hard question, especially if you have been praying for a long time, right? You have been waiting for the answered prayer. You've been waiting for the situation to turn around. But when I reflected after asking God what I was supposed to be learning in that season, I realized how many seasons had passed me by. How many lessons had passed me by because I was so focused on trying to do what I thought would lead to the outcome. We can't manipulate things in our lives to get to a specific outcome. What I was supposed to be learning is, one, how to grow in my faith. One, how to work on setting boundaries with people. How to grow personally, how to start managing the season in a way that I could learn more about who I was in Christ and more about my identity at that time. But instead, I was so focused on this other person, hoping, praying that they would want to improve, praying that they would want better for themselves. And one of the hardest lessons I've ever learned was that you cannot want more for someone than they want for themselves. They have to want it. They have to want to get better. They have to want to do the work. They have to want to improve. You telling them or praying about it alone doesn't change it. Prayer works and it's very helpful, but that person also has to want to do the work for themselves. And when I was able to take a step back and stop allowing how the person navigated their journey and their truth to affect me, it made such a difference. I started to lean in and realize there are areas in my life that I needed to grow. There are areas like people pleasing that I wasn't even aware of that I was engaging in. There were boundaries that I wasn't even aware of that I should have been setting. And that made a huge difference when I really start to figure out, what am I supposed to be learning here? I was so tunnel vision on that prayer. I was so wanting God to answer it, specifically in the way that I thought it should be answered. And it clouded my vision. It took away from what God was trying to show me in those moments. And it wasn't until I realized that I actually need to take a step back and recognize that there's something to be learned here, right? It's not all bad. It's not all negative. It's not all what I want it to be, but I know that God was trying to teach me something different. And sometimes you can be so engrossed in wanting so desperately for that specific thing to be different that you miss out on the miracles that can be happening around you, on the other blessings. One helpful thing as you're navigating what you're supposed to be learning is to remember to be thankful. Write a list. I wrote one recently of the things I was thankful for. So even if there's areas where you may not have had the breakthrough yet, or you may not be where you thought you wanted to be, writing down the things that you are grateful for, right? Maybe it's you just being able to sit where you're sitting, to have a roof over your head in this moment. Maybe it's the ability to watch some encouragement. Maybe it's your family. Maybe it's a job. Write down those things. And then what I realized is there were so many things to be thankful for. Then the struggle, then the issue that I was praying about, right? And it's not that what you are praying about is not big, because if you've been persistent, if you've been praying over and over and over about it, it's important to you. Be open to realize that God may find another way to get there. Because he hasn't answered it the way that you want it to be answered, doesn't mean he's not going to answer it. It just means that his answer is so much better for you. It's so much bigger. It's more than you can imagine or dream of. But you have to give him space to do that. You have to grow your faith. And yes, it's easy to say, but it is challenging as you're walking through this process of believing the unseen, of believing what it doesn't look like. But that is what faith is all about. And the third thing that I want to share with you is that God will give you more than you can handle. Yeah, I know you've heard that God will not give you more than you can handle. But if he's God, then he can handle more than you can. Even when you think about 2 Corinthians 9 to 10. So what does it mean? It means that God allows a space to be weak. He knows that we are human beings. We are limited. We are imperfect. And because he knows that, he is able to work with us when we humble ourselves enough to recognize our weaknesses, to recognize that there are some situations, there are some moments, there are some people in our lives that we cannot change. We cannot move. We cannot push past in our own strength, which goes back to this need to trust him, to know him, to understand him, to rely on him, because there will be moments when your faith is tested, but he is able. He's able to move the unmovable. He's able to move mountains. He's able to do things that we could never have imagined. And what I saw while I was waiting and felt like so much time lost, what ended up happening is when I shifted from the focus on thinking that my life would change based on someone else, and starting to realize that I needed to change, that I needed to grow, that I needed to learn, it helped me to refocus my energy on my own work, right? On my own personal development, on my own spiritual walk, on my own faith. And the strength that has come from that is what allows me to encourage you. It's what allows me to even sit here still waiting for some breakthroughs in my life and knowing that God is going to make a way because I've seen him do it before. I've seen him have more strength than I could ever have. I've seen him answer prayers in a different way, in a creative way, in a mind-blowing way. I've seen him do it, but it required me to believe that he could do it. It required me to understand that there is a level of dependence that I have to have on him. There's a level of understanding that I have to have, a level of belief that I need in order to trust him, in order to know that he is never going to leave me, that he is with me always. And that is where the work starts, is the recognition of God's goodness, is the recognition of the fact that he could if he were willing to. So where are you on this journey? Are you living in a way that reflects that you believe him? Or are you allowing fear to continue to overtake you? Are you allowing disappointments to continue to stand in your way, to make you feel defeated? Or are you going to allow God to be God, for him to be bigger than you, for him to have answers that you don't have? But this will require a lot of trust. This will require doing some inner work. This will require letting go of your way and your will for your life and trusting his. This will require something from you. But are you willing to do the work? Are you willing to pray a different prayer this time? Are you willing for God to answer the way that he plans? I'm not saying to give up. I'm not saying to be discouraged. I'm just saying to look at things a little differently. I hope you like this video. Please like and subscribe. Share it with people that you will find helpful. And keep healing. Keep doing your work.